All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Jillian with Bite Size Nutrition, and we're here with another episode of GoPrimal Experience. So, this is basically the YouTube video show in which I get to talk to people that are just generally badass and super interesting in nutrition, fitness, strength and conditioning, all things related to health and fitness, really. And here I am with Noel Brand, who has a strength and conditioning gym out in Holland, and I'm going to let him introduce himself.
Thanks, Jillian. Thanks for having me. It was good to be back. The first one was kind of impromptu, but I loved it. My name is Noel Brand. I'm the co-owner and head coach of Breda Strength and Conditioning. We've been around for a couple of years now. Next year will be our 10th year. I am a former Marine. I was part of the Royal Netherlands Marine Corps for 14 years. I deployed to Afghanistan. I trained a wide variety of people, from military hopefuls to my mom, who's 69 years old, to guys in finance or IT, physiotherapists, and one or two pro athletes, and also a lot of competitive athletes. That's kind of what I do.
All right, awesome. And we were talking a little bit before we got started, and we definitely have a few things in common, not just that we like to lift weights, but we both kind of had our start a pretty long time ago in CrossFit. And so I know, obviously, not obviously, but I've never been in the military, but I do know that CrossFit is pretty big within the military, especially in the States, which is where I'm from. So can you tell me a little bit about kind of like how you got your start? And then how the trajectory's gone since then?
Yeah, sure. Of course, I'd love to. So I always was more of an endurance guy. I started training for the military to go into the Marine Corps, and I did a lot of endurance stuff. So running half marathons, survival runs, which is basically the tougher older brother of the Spartan races that you see. This is basically
Wait. Now you need to tell me what a survival run actually entails, because now I'm really curious.
So they try and hunt you with spears. No, it's what it is. It's basically a 10, 12, maybe like 16-kilometer long cross country run. But there's a route that they make. It's very easy to follow, and they tape it off, etc. But it's more technical kind of obstacles like you would find in an obstacle course or an assault course. And it's a Dutch sport that was, so it sounds like really awful, but it's survival runs. But it's very popular in Belgium, England, and in the Netherlands.
Okay.
Belgians are very good at it. But that's basically what it is. You run in running tights, long running tights, and like thermal shirts, because it's usually held in the winter as well. So when you run through streams, sometimes you need to break the ice, or you're running through snow.
Oh, wow.
And your hands get really cold. Yeah, climb ropes, but not just up, also like horizontally. And you might have like an obstacle that takes you, like a big obstacle will take you like 25 meters. So you'll have like a 10-meter horizontal rope going into a net, and you cannot touch the floor. So it might even only be like a meter off the floor, but there's like a beam, like a log underneath. So you need to climb down the net underneath the beam, come up again, and then do maybe like different ropes that are hanging like this. And you cannot touch the top rope, but you gotta like traverse the entire obstacle, and then you get to run again, maybe 500 meters, maybe a kilometer. And the idea is to finish the entire race without losing your red band, which shows you nailed every obstacle until you get to the end.
Got it.
They make like a list, and then you got to win. Okay. So anyway, I did that stuff. I did that stuff. I was more of an endurance guy, and then later I got into kettlebells, and then we're just going to wait until this helicopter flies over. And so I got into kettlebells while I was in the Marine Corps, and I even took kettlebells with me on deployment and on exercise, like field exercises, if there was a chance to bring them with us. So I dabbled in kettlebells, and eventually, while I was in Afghanistan, there were a lot of Australians at our base in Tarankot, and there were some SF guys from the United States military, and but CrossFit was really becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. And this was in 2009, so it was already pretty popular in the States, not as big as it is now, obviously. And then I was like, oh, so what's this? And I got more and more curious about CrossFit. So when I came back from Afghanistan, I pretty much maxed out my credit cards to travel and attend seminars. And I did my level 1 in Switzerland, did CrossFit Endurance in England. I did CrossFit Mobility, Olympic lifting, did, what else did I do?
So you've got basically all the CrossFit certifications, or all the CrossFit certificate courses that you can have.
Well, there's one that I'm very happy that I attended, because it changed everything for me, but it's not here anymore. And that was CrossFit Football, which was coached by John Welborn, who was in Every Second Counts, the big guy with the big elephant tattoo on his back, the former NFL player. I think he played, he mentions it all the time in the podcast, but I think he like 10 or 14 years in the NFL, like at the highest level. So that's no joke. He was coaching CrossFit Football, and I attended that I think in Copenhagen, or Stockholm, one of the two, one of those. And but they were talking about strength and conditioning more than about CrossFit Football or CrossFit, and they implemented sprints and Olympic lifts and change of direction drills and a lot of other stuff. And the coach who was like the co-coach was actually his strength and conditioning coach, Rafael Ruiz, who is fucking brilliant. Rafael Ruiz forgot more about strength and conditioning than I have learned about strength and conditioning. This guy was amazing. So I was really like struck by, this guy knows so much stuff. And then later I found he's a strength and conditioning coach, and eventually I was like, well, a lot of the answers that CrossFit didn't answer for me, I found in what he was coaching about strength and conditioning, and he kind of explained what strength and conditioning was. And I was like, I think this is where I need to go to find more value and more knowledge and more experience. And this is where I felt personally I need to go.
And so when you say that it kind of like filled in the blanks of what CrossFit didn't have, what did you feel like was missing when you were practicing CrossFit? What did you kind of feel like it was missing for you?
So first of all, I'm not hating on CrossFit, because it got me interested in strength and conditioning. And I think CrossFit gets a lot of people off the couch and active. And there's no program in the world that has been more helpful or successful into getting people in the gym and working with a barbell and a kettlebell, etc.
It's interesting because for a lot of people, I think CrossFit is like the gateway drug. And I think for a lot of people, but it really depends, because I think for some people, they may find CrossFit, and that's sort of like the gateway into other, like strength and conditioning or more sport specific. And I think then for a lot of athletes, it's kind of on the other side, where like CrossFit might be that end game. Whereas like, maybe they've been training for a long time, they're on a team or something. They're like, you know what, CrossFit is that thing that I need to keep me active sort of in the long run. So it's interesting, because I think for me, CrossFit was definitely kind of like a gateway drug into weightlifting.
Yes, I understand. Well, so what I wanted to say was, I totally agree. I think there are great CrossFit coaches, and I think there are shitty CrossFit coaches. I think there are great strength and conditioning coaches, and I also know a ton of shitty strength and conditioning coaches. So I am not anti-CrossFit. I am anti-shitty coaches, especially because we're supposed to make people better. It just it depends on your purpose, on your goal, on what you enjoy. And obviously, if it keeps you if it keeps you injury free, and you move well, you move often, and you limit training injuries and competition injuries, and I guess you're doing a great job. But if everybody in your gym is like has
It's like
injuries,
walking
and
in and they're like shoulder, you have to like relocate their shoulder before they do stuff. Yeah. Yeah. There's
yeah.
definitely,
So
I completely agree with you.
yeah, I do um, do recommend a couple of CrossFit gyms to people that move away from Breda because they're moving to another town, and they're like, is there a strength and conditioning gym or a somewhat same quality and committed gym that like Breda Strength and Conditioning? And I'll tell them usually what I think, what's around, and I do sometimes refer people to a CrossFit gym. Usually not that many, but there are definitely some great coaches that I'm also very good friends with. So to answer your question, what did I think that CrossFit was lacking, or maybe not answering my personal questions, my personal interest? What is was a lot of principles, I'd say, a lot of things like, why are we picking this movement with this rep range right now, and why are we doing this energy system right now for why, what is the work and rest ratio that this way? Why is it not the other way? Why are we doing stuff overhead? Why are we doing Olympic lifts instead of this? So there was a lot of things that I was wondering about, like, how do I program? How does this follow this? What is the progression and the regression to this, instead of just instead of just like pull ups and thrusters?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, go.
I think what you say also about the coaches is, I think what happens, and this is sort of my opinion on CrossFit. I adore CrossFit, especially for the community and the fact that it gets people moving, and it's really
Yes.
motivating. You know, it's a great way for people to sort of like stay connected, and
Yes.
actually want to go into the gym. But I think for me, kind of with CrossFit is I think it's hard for a lot of people to understand that, like, oh, you go to like a weekend course to learn sort of like the CrossFit fundamental movements, but that doesn't make you a CrossFit coach. And then I think there's the other side of it where people, you know, they may be really good athletes, like they go to local competitions and they win their competitions, or, you know, they're really strong or really fast, but like that also doesn't make them a really good coach. And
No.
so, you know, for myself, for example, like I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm an amazing coach, but I think that over the years, you know, I have a lot of years of experience now doing this, and also being an athlete where like I'm not very athletic naturally. And so in order to get everything, I sort of had to really work through it mentally and physically, and had to go through the progressions and understand the strength behind it. And, you know, I think that a lot of the time you know, people will say like, hey, you're strong, you're a good athlete, like, why don't you be a CrossFit coach? And it's like, well, haven't you ever heard the, you know, if you can't do, teach? Like, that's why you see a lot of like weightlifting coaches, and you're like,
Yes.
oh, that weightlifting coach is really out of shape. And it's like, yeah, but they're an amazing weightlifting coach because they understand all the little nuances of it. Not that I'm saying like,
True.
look,
It's definitely true.
yeah, I mean, not that I'm
I
telling you to go look
what you
for a
mean.
fat weightlifting coach, but you know.
You know, there's a great there's a legendary strength and conditioning coach called Michael Boyle. Michael Boyle's been in the industry for almost 40 years, and so is Dan John, who's recently had a book called 40 Years with a Whistle. But Michael Boyle, he jokes all the time. If you put him in a lineup of like coaches, you would never pick him to be like this really, really, really experienced strength and conditioning coach.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, he has some fantastic presentations, and you can look up a lot of Michael Boyle's stuff for free. He has published a ton of stuff. So did Dan John. But obviously, you need to look the part that you're not like super overweight. But sometimes, as a coach, you don't have to outlift everybody.
Yeah.
As a coach, you don't have to be able to outrun everybody. You just got to know your stuff, know what you're doing, and you got to be able to teach. So if you can move correctly and give a correct example, that's good. You know, you might have like torn something, and you might not be able to do a certain movement. Then you need to be able to explain it to others, and maybe use somebody else for that demo. But that's fine. But I understand that sometimes certain coaches don't look the part, but the question is, would you rather be coached by a great coach who doesn't look the part, or would you rather be coached by somebody who looks the part who is not a great coach?
Yeah, and I think that's hard because some people don't really know, they don't really know the difference until it's too late. And so from
Yes.
there, so from your CrossFit football experience, how did that progress into like, hey, I'm going to open my own gym and it's going to be a strength and conditioning gym?
Yeah. So first of all, I was kind of thinking about, just starting the gym, because I did most of my certification in 2011 or 2010 with CrossFit. And then I was looking around in the Netherlands, where is there something that you can, courses that you can do, seminars you can attend, or like an entire education program that you can go through that that teaches you about programming, teaches you about nutrition, teaches you about rehabbing injuries, or testing or stuff like that, and getting it all together into a big program. So I found out it was called the overload principle. Currently, I don't think they're doing a great job at the moment. But back then it definitely helped me. So I'm not trying to bag on them, because I'm very grateful for what they taught me, as with CrossFit. But sometimes you just need to keep developing. And just like with CrossFit, I used the stuff that I thought was useful and didn't use the rest. The same with the overload principle. I use a lot of their stuff that I thought was useful, and then I, added stuff, took away stuff. But I did that entire certification called the overload principle, or top trainer C. So you have level A, which is programming and adding weight, recruiting in weights, so add weight. Then you have top trainer B, which is about speed, about sprints, about explosive movements. Then you have like your injury prevention and testing, and then you have your nutrition part, and then you can try and become top trainer C, which is and there's a lot of written tests, etc., like 50 questions, and can only get 5 wrong. And then for top trainer C, there's a lot of practical next to the theoretical stuff, the written test stuff, and then you eventually get a 100 questions exam. You need to nail that, and then also a lot of hands-on stuff.
Okay.
So I was dabbling in getting. Am I going to start a CrossFit gym alongside with somebody else? Now it's my wife and I that run the gym, but beforehand I started the gym with somebody else. But he was more CrossFit minded. Eventually, he and I, we split ways, and now he runs a CrossFit gym in I'd say about 20 kilometers east of Breda, and I run with Sanna, my wife, the strength and conditioning gym. But we were on the fence a little bit. But I thought the reason that I didn't want to start a CrossFit gym but a strength and conditioning gym is because you also have to manage expectations from people that you train. So sometimes people will see people competing in the CrossFit Games, and they expect to get there as well, or they expect a certain thing because hey, that's CrossFit, because I see people competing, doing this kind of stuff, and they're the pinnacle of the CrossFit community. Like they're absolute monsters, absolute incredible athletes. And in the beginning, I think it was different with CrossFit, but now you see people that might not make it to the NFL, and then they switch to CrossFit, and they're like fantastic athletes, and they naturally adapt to the training and the methodology and like the entire community, and they're just, they're amazing. But a lot of I think managing expectations has a lot to do with it. So we decided to start a strength and conditioning gym because strength and conditioning, in my opinion, doesn't limit you in the things that you can do. It's just do whatever is necessary to get the job done. So let me just, I'd say rotational med ball throws against the wall. That's not CrossFit, no, but it will help you get better. Chops with a pulley That's not CrossFit. No, but it'll get you better for rotation, anti-rotation, the ball of press for anti-rotation, stuff like that. That's not CrossFit. No, but the goal isn't CrossFit. The goal is to get you better. So strength and conditioning can help you with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, with CrossFit, with triathlon, getting into the military, recovering from injuries, etc. So I thought it's more wider and there are more tools that we can use compared to CrossFit. So that's why we chose to not do CrossFit, but use strength and conditioning, because there's more possibility to use more tools.
Got it. So you kind of felt, because this is interesting. This is something I've actually talked about with a few people, because I think one of the things that CrossFit has done really well is that CrossFit has sort of created this marketing where it's like anything is kind of CrossFit. But at the same time, like what you're saying, for example, you wouldn't add in like a, rotational med ball throw and think that that's like a traditional CrossFit move. Although, I do know that a lot of gyms are adding and stuff like that in their like core sequences or in their strength, their strength portion. And it's just interesting seeing the development of a lot of the CrossFit specific gyms that have started incorporating a lot more of the strength and conditioning style movements and training into their methodology. Because I think now there's really very few just pure CrossFit gyms where you go in and you do the WOD and like that's the workout. I think a lot of gyms are really starting to kind of differentiate. And
it's very important.
Yeah. And so for
you
guys,
very important. Unfortunately,
go ahead. So
sorry, there's a little lag. Go ahead, girl.
No, I was just curious, like if I were to show up at your gym and say like, hey, I'm Jillian. I want to get stronger. I want to look better naked. What would a class look like for me? Like, would you, do you guys do group classes? Is it mostly personal training? And then how do you structure those classes to make sure that they're kind of inclusive for a wide variety of people?
So, unless you want to do personal training with us, you have to go through our Good to Go program. So we have Good to Go, which is 4 weeks, eight sessions, 4 weeks, and we have Up to Speed, which is for people that have experience in strength and conditioning or training, or can squat, bench, deadlift, shoulder press, do pull-ups, can do kettlebell swings and goblet squats, that kind of stuff. The basics. They can go have a personal session with me, and then I okay them so I can see them move, and then I can go, okay, depending on your goals, you can do these kind of classes, because we do classes. Because we do classes, we want everybody to be somewhat proficient in being able to move, because some people look like they just got their body yesterday, never used it in their life, and then they're like, oh, what does this do? When I move my arms and legs, things happen. Yes, it does.
It's like the person that you tell them, you're like, bend your right arm, and they like fall over.
Yeah, they disintegrate. But a lot. Well, some people, they can't hip hinge for shit, and they cannot. Depression or retraction of their scapula is just unknown to them. So, and that's fine, because if you put me behind a piano and you ask me to, play Mozart's whatever, I'm going to be like, do I press this key or that key? I don't know how that works. So, everybody's experienced in some things, and people are less experienced in other things. But in the ways of your body, I think everybody should be able to move pretty okay to make sure you don't get injured. Anyway, so we have our Good to Go program, which is the 4 week program with the 8 sessions, and I coach them all. It's a small group, no more than 8 people, and we basically teach them a push, pull, squat, hinge, weighted carries. We teach them how a rower works. We teach them how the air bike works, how the skier works, just really basic stuff. And we also have 4 separate classes, and then we have 4 other classes where it is either a structural class or an obstacle course racing class, and we end with FYF, which is our like a graduation training. FYF stands for Fuck You Friday. It's our toughest class. It's our most popular class, but the 4 other classes that are not the basics on squat, bench, or push, pull, squat, hinge are classes where other members of the gym are also attending. So I can coach the new people, and they meet the experienced people. And I expect all of my experienced members to help out the new members, because we do not tolerate people putting other people down. So especially that leave your ego at the door part, where some CrossFit gyms have a lot of problems with doing the exact thing that they mentioned, leave your ego at the door. We'll have none of your shit if you think you're the man, because I can point you out to like 2 or 3 people that will absolutely destroy you in whatever you think you are the best at. And besides that, I have a lot of military people training there, and they will actually fucking destroy you.
So I love that you say that, because I think that is a really key point that I see in a lot of gyms. Like, I've been in a lot of gyms. Gyms are like a comfortable place for me, but I think that it's interesting because you can tell when you walk in a gym if the people have an ego or not. And you can tell from the moment that you step inside by, who says hello, who smiles at you, like, how welcoming the class environment is. And so I think that, what you do with your new people, it sounds like you sort of like slowly integrate them into the community instead of just, here's a couple classes isolated, and then all of a sudden we're going to throw you into these classes with these people that you don't know. And so how did you develop, like, as someone that has worked in a lot of gyms over the years, how did you decide to develop the program that way, where you sort of integrate people in, and how do you think it's affected the culture at your gym?
So we decided to coach people in the first couple of years. We decided to just show up. Okay, you're new. I'm gonna coach you, but meanwhile, all the experienced people coming in also needed attention. So I was like, okay, I want quality from the get-go. I want people to understand that we know what we do. We're pretty good at what we do. We're pretty efficient and effective, but I want people to know that we care about how they perform and how they can get better. So we have, and I think I mentioned this, our mission statement in the front of our gym. Did I talk to you about that? I think I did last time. Didn't I do? Okay, so we have, so how did we create this culture? Well, it's very important that you know what is and what is not accepted at Breda Strength and Conditioning. So I'm just, because I shut off my phone to make sure we had a stable internet connection, I'm going to start up again, and I'm going to read out to you, because I know it in Dutch, but obviously this is English, so now I need to translate it, and I have the translation on my phone. But we have a mission statement while my phone is starting up. We have a mission statement. It has been in front of our gym, or in the front of our gym, for many years now. And it is basically where we tell you what you can expect from us, but also what we expect from you. And every time somebody comes into the gym, and they also always get a 30-minute intake for free. And even if you decide not to join us, that's fine. That's all good. But our mission statement of Breda Strength and Conditioning is this. Let me read it to you. Sorry, people, for having you letting people wait here.
No, I really like that is sort of front and center, because I think that that's something that, especially in a gym culture, it needs to start with the owners. It needs to start with the coaches. It needs to start with the people that are integrated within the gym. And if it's not, then you can't really expect any of the new members to sort of pick up that culture. And I think it's really hard when, as a gym owner, if you don't start out that way, or as a coach, if you don't start out that way, it's hard to pick it up after the time, because you can't really, retrain people.
Exactly. No, that's exactly, because they will hit you up with, we used to do it like this, or we used to do it like that.
Exactly.
So I'm going to go ahead and at Breda Strength and Conditioning, we make people physically and mentally stronger. Our training is simple but not easy. With minimal means, we yield maximal results. We value quality, technique, hard work, and supporting each other. We want to give our members the training we can every time that they are in the gym. We don't care what your 100% effort is, but give us your 100 effort.
Awesome. So I think that's, I think that's a really key point that, you know, we can kind of, I think we can wrap it up there, that basically what it comes down to is whether you're doing strength and conditioning, whether you're doing CrossFit, whether you're doing like survival runs or whatever, I think that as a, you know, as a gym owner or as, you know, as a coach, I think that sometimes we forget that it's all relative. So like whatever, you know, what your 100% effort is, what my 100% effort is, what your mom's 100% effort is, like it's all relative. But as a coach, it's really important that you recognize that. And I think that that's something, you know, you'll go into a gym sometimes and you see people that are just like, go, go, go. And it's like, well, you know, like Maria over there is like struggling. Like you need to, you know, go, go, go is not going to help her right now. We kind of need to figure out like what Maria needs in order to give that 100%. So I think that, you know, unfortunately as a coach, often we end up being like, not just a coach, but also psychologist and like friend and mother.
I think it's very important because they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So it's also managing expectations. You need to know your basic stuff, like energy systems, periodization, programming, blah, 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 but you also need to be able to communicate to your members. And, you know, that I think that's more important than anything.
Yeah, I think that, you know, also just to kind of wrap it up, we forget that everything is the same. Like all things are the same in the sense of like, you need communication in your relationship at home. You need communication with your coach. You need communication with your friends. Like it doesn't matter what situation you're in or what type of relationship it is.
With
but
yourself.
in the end, yeah, exactly. It's like if you could be doing the best strength and conditioning programming in the world, but like if there's no communication between you and your coach or between you and your body, then like it's all gonna fall apart. Yeah. And I think that it's, you know, it's really cool that that a lot of, I think CrossFit does some really amazing things for us in the sense that like it gets a lot of people's brains working and it gets a lot of people's bodies working. And then from that, we can sort of like branch out and figure out, you know, what we want to do with that and where we want to go from there.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Noel, thank you so much for your time again. I'm sorry we had some internet issues, but I think it was pretty cool to kind of hear the story of how you went, you know, how you went from military through CrossFit, strength and conditioning. So thank you so much for sharing that. And
you're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Of course, one day I will make it out there to train with you guys. I promise.
Yeah, definitely try and make it out there around September because we'll have our barbecue, we'll have our own beer, and we'll have a crushing like community workout, a team versus team workout, and we'll make you do fun stuff like 20 people on this team versus 20 people on that team, and they all have to row a half marathon as a team and ski a half marathon as a team while being on the air bike and, you know, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, I feel like you just made it clear that I am not coming to that barbecue.
Hey, there's beer afterwards, and it's, you know, it's our beer, so, you know.
Fair enough. Fair enough.